You okay?
Yeah, I started spilling water.
Oh, don't do that.
I'm gonna do it right now.
I'm wearing the same thing I wore earlier. I'm still dressed for Valentine's Day.
Yeah, but this is 2 weeks later, so who cares? Didn't have to tell him shit. It's not like there's the same bouquet of flowers in the background.
I didn't rig shit. I'm gonna get my water real quick.
Oh my god, are you telling me I have to sit here by myself and fill this awkward empty space? And I'm getting the note to keep vamping and filling this space, and Spencer's back. Oh, thank God. Oh my god, it's the last Monday of February.
It is the last Monday of February. Oh my god.
Oh my
Hopefully
God.
everybody managed to do everything that they wanted to do in
Hopefully.
February.
God, I hope so. We'll find out if we did everything we wanted to do. It surely isn't currently February 4th.
We're so ahead of the game.
We're not even going to know what SM Soup is in 3 weeks.
No. It could be.
Surely. This is probably the last episode you'll ever hear. First movie club burned in.
What?
The first movie club is what ran us into the ground.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited because we're doing the first movie club.
We're doing the first movie club.
For S.
M.
Soup. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to SM Soup, the #1 podcast with soup in the name, but not on the brain. I'm Spencer.
I'm Shelby.
And together we're here to take you on a journey through life's biggest questions, like which movie from 1983 was the best movie? Which Academy Award nominated movie from 1983 was the best movie?
Facts. And Spencer, the answer is?
So, this is our first time doing this.
This is, so we're going to maybe be adjusting the layout as we go forward.
But I think the best way to go about it is just to go in order of the movies that we watched.
Okay.
Kind of break it down a little bit, what we
Sure.
liked, what we didn't like, some of
Sure.
the notes that we wrote down for them.
Sure.
And then at the end of it, we'll give our like definitive ranking each of the 5 movies and like the order that we would put them in.
We did literally just finish, like we just watched the 5th film for us.
Yes.
In no particular order. Like
No.
we randomly chose them. And so it actually, even though we just watched it, I'm terrified that I didn't take a single note about that movie.
That's so funny.
I'm so scared.
Because I also barely wrote anything down for it,
Oh my
which I think is
God.
kind of telling for
Yeah.
how I feel about it.
Yeah. I have that. Okay, let's go. Let's start.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Let's
Okay, so the
start.
5 movies that we watched were Terms of Endearment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just in, this is in no particular order.
Okay.
Because I can't remember. Oh, no. It was this is the order that we're going to review them too. Terms of Endearment, The Dresser,
Yes. The Right Stuff.
The Right Stuff, Tender Mercies, and The Big Chill.
Yes. Those are all the nominated Picture of the Year movies.
The movie that won Best Picture and the movie that we watched first was Terms of Endearment.
Yes.
Let's talk about Terms of Endearment. And real quick, just in case it wasn't understood, hopefully you watch the movies, or hopefully you're not going to be bummed if we have some spoilers. I don't think we're ever going to go too crazy.
Yeah, I'm going to attempt to not like full story it, but
No,
like
certainly
I do
not.
think to like, since they're so old,
Well, also I think it's just like
to actually talk about them.
we gave you 8 weeks of warning.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you had plenty of time to get around to watching them. And if at any point you're like, oh shit, wait, maybe I should go watch this movie, just pause it, go watch the movie, and then come back
and see if you agree with us.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever be like so bad, but I think sometimes in movies like there's a moment that is like so moving and so powerful that like it might play into how
your
you
reaction
feel
to it.
about it.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's necessarily one like that in this grouping. I could be wrong. Terms of Endearment. Let's start with that.
Terms of Endearment. My first note. Seeing young Danny DeVito and Jack Nicholson is the craziest thing that ever happened to me. That's my first note.
All right.
Second note. Deborah Winger, who is the main actress, like the daughter in the family, is literally, we now have a 2000s version of her in Zoeey Deschanel.
Mm-hmm.
That is my second note of the movie, and I'm not joking. That thought only became stronger to me as we kept watching the movie. So much is alike in Zoeey Deschanel. Can I know we're doing rankings at the back, but basically as a whole, I really liked this movie. Like
Mhm.
I really like this movie. It was a fantastic start to the whole series. A little bit bold, I will say, on our part to watch the winner first. I don't know. It's both interesting and I'm like, did we set ourselves up a little bit? Because to watch the winner first, unless you like are like really don't like the movie somehow, that's kind of like daunting to then have to compare all the others to
It's
it.
fair.
But I really liked it.
Yeah.
I
I think I don't know. Real quick, going off of that, I think
Yeah.
it's like kind of telling though if like you watch another of the nominees and feel like so passionately. I don't know. I don't know
Yeah,
if
no, it can go either way,
yeah. I
100%.
don't know.
I'm
I
not
really
saying there's
don't
a right or
know
wrong
if
way of
they're
doing it.
yeah.
I just think it was like so interesting because again, I really love this movie. It was very interesting for it to be the winner and the first one we watched. Okay, the main notes I made, which this is probably just a big, I can't say I wouldn't say this in a movie today, but it's definitely a big 80s thing. I put, why is asking a man to watch his own children for a few days seemingly the worst thing you could do to him?
Yeah.
Made that note. And then I also said, brief what Terms of Endearment is. Effectively, it's about this like, it's about a mother-daughter relationship.
Mhm.
Effectively, mother loves her daughter in an almost overbearing manner, is a very protective mother figure. Daughter marries a man she doesn't approve of,
Mhm.
and kind of is whisked off and lives this life, ends up having 2 kids of her own, and is always still close to her mom, but you can tell there's like a struggling dynamic because the mom like thinks there's a right way of doing things, but at the end of the day loves her daughter more than anything, to like is like will be oh my god, passive aggressive about all of her opinions, but at the end of the day will like support her through anything. Is ultimately what the whole story is about. So literally the last note I really pretty much put was, wow, the oldest son, so the Deborah Winger, her like oldest son in the movie, is literally the most tragic character of the entire movie. Because it just made me really sad, because basically the marriage between I don't know the man's name, but like, you know, the daughter who runs off with her husband, they end up having a pretty devastating marriage, like not functional.
See, I would say what was Deborah Winger's character's name?
I don't know, I just wrote Deborah Winger.
I love that I wrote down Jeff Daniels was Flip, but I didn't write down
I just wrote Deborah Winger so I wouldn't
So did
accidentally
I.
keep
Emma.
saying the 80s Zoe Deschanel.
Emma.
'Cause that feels rude.
Emma and Aurora. Aurora was her mom.
Oh, I love that name.
I would say Emma was the most tragic character in the movie.
Sure.
For a lot of reasons.
But the son made me really sad.
Yeah.
Because he's old enough throughout the movie to see it
He's
all.
old enough and aware of everything.
And like sees it, whereas his younger brother clearly still has so much, is incredibly naive, because he's literally a little boy and sees his mom as like, you know, his best friend in the whole world. And so, yeah, that is very emotionally devastating, is literally watching like a marriage dissolve in front of your eyes. You're constantly being run off to grandma's house to avoid problems. Like, and then of course, like the movie ends pretty sad. So the son is just like there and aware for all of it. And it's not focusing on him. Like he's just kind of there, but that makes me more sad because it feels like he's just there watching horrible things.
Yeah.
But yes,
Yeah.
obviously,
I think Emma's the more tragic one,
a very tragic character.
For so many reasons.
Yeah.
And I think like one of those is her relationship with her own son, because
Yes,
you can tell that like she's the bad guy in his eyes. You know, like why can't she ever just lay off dad and just like dad has it hard.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, that whole like
100%
relationship poison that happens in families.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. What? Anything else you have?
No, those are my main notes. Other than why was the last 8 minutes of this movie so fucking emotionally devastating?
Yeah, I mean the whole
it was
movie.
It was like it was fine. Like you knew there were problems, but it wasn't like trying to make you cry for them.
Yeah.
You were just like, oh God, no! Like things could be so good, but you're not like devastated. And then literally the last 8 to 10 minutes when we're gonna fuck you up.
Yeah.
We're gonna make you so upset that you were actually enjoying this movie. And literally it just ends.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's so upsetting.
It is. It is really, really like it's such a solid movie.
Yes, it's very touching.
It's very emotional.
Yes.
And yeah, it's devastating.
Yeah.
It's very devastating. But almost all of it was done so incredibly well.
I agree.
The characters were all written really well, and like the performances were all really good. Like I put down, like I think Shirley MacLaine and Deborah Winger both like. So that was Emma and Aurora.
Yeah, the mom and daughter.
In the right order.
Yeah.
It was Aurora and Emma, Shirley and Deborah.
Yeah.
They both gave just like incredible performances.
Yeah.
They had like great chemistry between the two. Literally felt like a legitimate like mother-daughter relationship between them that they just like absolutely crushed. I mean, Jack Nicholson, for what it's worth, like did a really good job in his role. Like he kind of plays this like hotshot, like bachelor, former astronaut
who's also like completely burnt out. Yeah.
But
or not like washed out is the word I meant to say.
But then like so like he can't like I don't know about how you felt, but like when you first are interacting with his character, it's just like this guy kind of fucking sucks.
Yeah,
like,
I was like,
don't like this.
I was kind of like, why is he here?
Right, like every scene was just like I fucking hate this. But then like the development of his character throughout the movie
as
solid. A side character is like really like well done.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I put was like Jeff Daniels as Flip. I said is pretty spectacular considering that he is one half of Dumb and Dumber. Like him and Jim Carrey are Dumb and Dumber, and for him to be in such like a raw, like emotional role was just very impressive. Last thing I said was overall, I think the movie had some pacing issues. But I also think that might have just been a product of the time. Something that I think we'll kind of talk about in some of these other films, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I think that's just like a product of like being in the 80s and like, you know, working with what you have.
Yeah.
Like a big thing is that like, and again, I think it's like a sign of the times, but like the aging of the characters is like kind of non-existent.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
But I know I kind of forget that years take place in the movie.
Right.
I mean, to me, it feels like 5 weeks.
It literally starts with like, yeah, whatever.
It is a little off. Like if
it just kind of jumps.
If Flip and Emma wouldn't have had 2 kids, I would have no concept of the passing of time.
Right.
Like without them having 2 kids, and you can tell there's an age difference between the children, pretty sizable age difference. Yeah.
Even with that like criticism against it, I do think that for a movie that is over 40 years old.
Yeah. Great movie.
It really holds up.
It
really holds up. It's a really good movie.
It's overall a commentary on humans being absolute messes.
Overall is absolute commentary on... What's The Dresser a commentary? Let's talk about The Dresser.
The Dresser is a commentary on Shelby being a dumb bubblegum. That's what The Dresser is a commentary on.
I would like to start out by saying
maybe you should start with The Dresser.
Okay.
Because I am not going to provide a lot of context here.
Okay. I will start out by saying that this is not the 2015 version with Anthony Hopkins and
Ian McKellen.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you go on Prime, that's the photo they have as the header, and it's very confusing.
Yes. So I wrote a couple of things, and so real quick to give a synopsis, like the movie is about an aging actor a play actor. It's taking place during World War II. He's like very much like towards the end of his career, probably needs to like be done, honestly. Probably
needs to seek medical attention.
But
honestly.
He's like going through it anyway. And he has a sidekick that I guess is like commonly maybe in like playwriting and stuff referred to as a dresser. So like a person who kind of like he was basically like a glorified assistant.
Yeah.
For him. And the movie all takes place like leading up to it begins with them ending the company ending their last show and the lead up to and the entirety of their rendition of King Lear, which is Shakespeare.
Yeah.
One thing that I wrote down that I found very interesting about the movie, and I'm curious if you picked up on it as well, was that, and I wrote verbatim, this might be a stupid note, but every line in the film feels like it's delivered in a play.
Yes.
And like, not in the sense of like, well, of course, because it's a movie and they're acting and like, of course, it's like they're reading from a script or whatever. But like, it was like the pacing of it felt like they were on a stage and like
there was a very
could've-
lyrical way of writing how they spoke.
And I said, I can't tell if that's like intentional
I'm guessing
or not,
it is.
but I'm assuming it is, or like, you know, whatever. So I thought that was very interesting and like kind of, again, the last thing I said is that there's a lot of layers to the movie. And I think that kind of adds to it. The movie itself is a tragedy about the performance of a tragedy.
Yeah.
And there were probably more instances throughout the movie, but like, this is a major spoiler, but the play scene of King Lear mimicked the death scene of Sir at the end.
That went way over my head.
It like perfectly mimicked it.
That's so funny. I didn't, honestly, by the end,
and I only picked up on that one mostly, and I wish I almost kind of want to like watch the movie again to see if there are more instances.
Well, we're gonna
that
watch
you maybe
the
don't.
Ian McKellen, Anthony
Yeah,
Hopkins
maybe
one.
there are other instances that you don't pick up.
There
on.
probably are. I literally no, because there definitely are. I mean, not that I can sit here and be like, this happened,
right?
But 100%, you could tell it was effectively a play about preparing for a play. Like you could I could tell that from like the beginning, which is why so much of it went over my head because I just like felt like I was having to focus so hard on like what was being. It was a me problem. Like everything I'm saying is a me problem. It just was not a movie I could like wrap my head around. The biggest note I said was clearly I don't understand British people when they yell, and I need to know more about Shakespeare because both those things made it so. Or maybe I like needed subtitles. Like I don't know. I was struggling to keep up. I could tell what was happening and like what they were going for, but like I felt like I had to put so much energy into like what was being said and like. Oh yeah, like obviously they're saying this. They're saying in a very floral, play written way, but like I'm spending so much time focusing on what it is they're saying that I'm just like, oh my, I was like tired. Like that movie made me tired, but I thought it was great. Like the acting was amazing. I enjoyed it.
Phenomenal. Like literally, I wrote like Tom Courtenay crushed it as Norman. So that's the dresser. Like
yes, he did.
Was show stopping. He absolutely. Like stole every part of that film.
Yes.
And like it was, I mean, the movie was about two people for the most part. Like no other, like how Terms of Endearment had a lot of really solid performances throughout all of it.
Yeah.
This was very much just, there were two very good performances and that was it in this movie. And that was Norman and Sir.
Yeah.
And real quick, last thing that I wanted to say was that, this was really, it's a really tough, I feel like it's a really tough movie to watch in the sense that it is also fairly devastating because Sir, the aging actor is just kind of like slowly losing it throughout. And that is like one like subject matter in film that like I can never watch. Like I always struggle to watch that because it's just like extra devastating.
It's very upsetting to watch.
And just like how like the other people around that person kind of just need to like adapt on the fly to this person just like flying off the rails and not being like themselves. Yeah.
And you like can't fault them for it. You just have to like react and like, make sure they're safe and everyone around them is safe. Yeah. I didn't like do any research. I don't know if he was like supposed to be showing signs of dementia. There seemed to be other health. There seemed to be a lot of health issues going wrong, but a lot of it was like memory based and like having randomly not knowing what he was.
Very confused.
Yeah, he was very confused, which would cause him to like panic and like all of that. I did actually make a note like I loved. You said the dresser's name is Norman. I did love that part as much as it's really hard to watch that. I loved how like Norman's character handled it with him, where it was a mix of like kind of giving him tough love when he needed it because like you just like you see it, he sees it every day. He is to like basically like borderline keep an arm on him at all times to make sure he's like gonna be where he needs to be. He's not forgetting what he needs to like remember. Like it's a mix of tough love and like empowering him to keep existing as like an independent human, whilst also like recognizing when it is like the man just needs like support. Like he really does just emotionally need to be like kind of like extra supported or whatever, because he's like afraid or things. I really loved that part of it. Like I made a note about that, how quickly that was handled and like fluctuated. Because I mean, obviously, anyone who's dealt with anyone with like memory and issues and like that, it's kind of what you gotta do.
Right.
So I loved that aspect of their relationship. I thought it was so cool. Yeah. Like I said, like I can see all the greatness in the movie, but my brain couldn't handle it. But I do genuinely want to watch the like newer version of it.
Yeah. I think also like I have two more things that I want to say real quick. So we know Ian McKellen and Anthony Hopkins. Anthony Hopkins is Sir. Ian McKellen is Norman, is the dresser in the remake of it. Which also just real quick, love that. I love how like British actors are like no role is like beneath them, especially when it comes to like doing, because that their iteration of it was like straight to TV.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was like on BBC Four or whatever. And I just love that about like the British arts in general. Like, anyway, you and I were joking about it during, if we were to do a 2024 casting, American, of course, of it, it would be Billy Eichner as the dresser and Tom Hanks as Sir. I landed on Tom Hanks. I know we were
said Billy Eichner in the first 5 minutes of the movie. But yeah. I was like, if there was a US version, Billy Eichner would have to be the dresser.
And I feel like Tom Hanks is
Tom
just
Hanks
your
would be
typical,
a great Sir, yeah.
Old guy.
I was blanking on other old men.
Yeah, I was the only one
who weren't like British. I was really trying to think of.
The last thing is this movie, for me, of the 5, is like the most obvious Oscar bait or like Academy Award bait or like, you know, like award show bait in general. Like, it just had the right feel that like it's not surprising to me at all that this was a nominee.
It's not going to be the fan favorite, but yeah, it's absolutely like for a.
It's artsy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally a movie about the arts. Like.
And it's like it's movieception.
And it's classic.
A tragedy about a tragedy about a tragedy.
Yeah. You're so right.
There's layers and everything.
You're so right.
It's just like literally watching it, I was just like, it makes so much sense that this was nominated. Honestly, didn't feel that way about some of the other ones.
Honestly, same. But we have a good thing to keep in mind is we literally only watched these 5 movies. We didn't really look at other categories where other movies were nominated for like acting and stuff. So like obviously in the 83, people might have been like, this movie shouldn't have been on at all. This movie should have been like, we have no concept of that.
Well, and we were talking about it a little bit, but like a lot of times with the award shows and stuff, like it is a little bit about a popularity contest. As far as the dresser goes, I have no idea how you would try to spin that as like, unless I don't know. I mean, I don't recognize the name Tom Courtenay in any way. So that was Norman. So I don't know. But anyway. Anything else that you wanted to say about the dresser?
No, that's pretty much it.
All right. Next up was The Right Stuff.
Sick. I really didn't think I wrote my notes in order, but apparently I did. Killing it. All right. Base story. You start out with a handful of pilots who set out to fly faster than this sound barrier or the speed of sound, if you will. Funny enough, that gets accomplished super fucking fast in the movie. Not the point of the movie. And now all these pilots, through over years, you kind of like watch them continue to try to go faster, blah, blah, blah. It's a whole thing. And then ultimately, the United States wants to launch their first space program.
Yeah, it leads into the space race.
And so, yeah, it leads into that, which they ultimately use aircraft pilots to accomplish that, is the very overarching premise of the movie. This movie's how long? Like 3 fucking hours?
3 hours.
Holy shit. This movie needs to not be 3 hours.
Right.
Like, sorry. It needs to not be 3 hours. So the movie jumps it does jump a lot of years. Like a lot. Like it spans like 20 to 30 years. Something like that. It does jump around a lot.
Yeah.
Like a lot.
Yeah, it goes from definitely the late 40s, I think.
Yeah.
Because they refer to the one guy as somebody who like fought and like took down aircrafts in World War II.
Yeah.
And then the space race would have been, I mean, Kennedy was so early 60s to maybe late 60s. I don't think it would have gone into 70. Because this was just the space race. It wasn't like the race to the moon or anything. This was literally just like to get to outer space and then do like orbits and stuff like that. That was all it was. So like, this doesn't get into Apollo 13.
No, they like bring it up at the end, but it's not. It's not like shown in the movie.
Two of the pilots who were a part of this program ended up in Apollo 13.
Apollo 13, yeah.
That blew up.
Yeah. So it's a very long movie. It spans a lot of years. Which I don't know if I can sit here and be like, oh, they should have cut out, but like I don't know that, but it was just so long.
Way too long.
Yeah.
Way too long. I also said, hang on, really goes for these incredible long and drawn out shots that just are like very unnecessary.
Yeah.
Not even like from an artistic standpoint. Like I think you could have cut out easily 15 minutes of just like shots of like man's face back to a plane.
Yeah.
Back to man's face. Back to a plane.
Yeah.
Man's on a horse.
Yeah.
Back to the plane.
Yeah.
Back to the man. Back to the plane.
Yeah.
Back to the man. Back to the plane. Like 5 minutes of just back and forth until finally he just rides away. It's just like
it was
I mean, like maybe that went over my head or something. Like I don't know, but I mean, holy crap. That was just
it was a pretty slow paced movie. Especially her having spanned like so many years. The the first like 40 minutes are all like mostly just the like trying to fly faster situation.
The first 40 minutes I described as a pre-Top Gun Top Gun.
It really was, which I made a comment about that, and I said this is really funny that you like being filmed in the 80s and now having seen the Top Gun and the new one like Maverick, it's so wild the difference in like how it's filmed and like just like how do you film a jet in the 80s? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, literally I heard someone compare like Maverick to the first Top Gun and you're like, wow, that's crazy the difference. Okay, yeah, now subtract how many years, and they're trying to visually represent to you the speed at which these pilots are going and like how that is unbelievable for the time. So that's really funny and makes it a little painful because now we just know, like now we can film that in a very beautiful way. So that's a little painful, and that feeds into the like they clearly tried to get so many shots of just like basically it's as if you were just like moving a camera really fast.
Yeah,
like that's what it kind of felt like. Like someone's clearly just like looking up at the sky and then going like and like sliding it. Like that kind of is what it feels like, which again, that's 80s. You can't fault them for that. Still pretty crazy like how they did film it for the time. So that's really funny. I did make a note about that because like you said, the first 40 minutes literally do feel like what Top Gun, the old Top Gun is like to it completely. Also for the first 40 minutes, I wrote right off the bat, this movie makes me angry for all women involved. I said, they're just walking around waiting for them to be the ones to lose their husbands. Because literally at one point they said like every time a pilot went up in a plane, there was like some crazy % chance they weren't going to survive. Right. Because it was like such a unknown, like not well tested technology that you're pushing to the limit to try and be better and better. So like the first 40 minutes is just like basically a bunch of guys broing out and a bunch of women clearly trying to keep it together on the edge, just watching them have fun, knowing one day they're going to get walked up to and be like, sorry, your husband died in a plane accident.
Yeah,
like
effectively doing something that like we all knew he was probably going to die doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of like what it boiled down to for the time, especially.
Yeah. And so that was just like absolutely insane. And then it quickly, so that first 40 minutes I found to be really painful to watch just because it was slow paced. It was like there wasn't really a whole lot going on. Like there's not really a big point to that other than just really establishing you have a bunch of gung-ho pilots who like want to be the best. Like there's not really much beyond that established in the first 40 minutes. And then basically it starts panning to some sort of United States government grouping who want to establish. Of course, they're like, oh my God, Russia is building aircrafts. We need to build, or spacecrafts. We need to build spacecrafts, which I never knew until watching this movie what the Community episode was absolutely.
Had to have been.
It absolutely is. Where from the show Community, they like get the whole KFC spacecraft thing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely a 1-to-1 filming of it, and I think it's so great. But that scene where a bunch of like high up government are in a dark shaded room all going, who are we gonna get, what are we gonna do, how do we compete with Russia? I was in disbelief that like, I don't know, I'm not saying that didn't happen. I'm not saying that. I just, if it did happen, could we have maybe written it in a less I'm an absolute fucking idiot
Two things.
way?
I wrote, the space race was fucking dumb and crazy.
It was.
I hate people in power because, like, what the fuck are we doing? Let's all just live. What the fuck is this shit? They literally say at one point, do you know what will happen if Russia gets to the moon? They'll drop nukes from up there.
Yeah.
And shit like that. It's just like, that's so crazy. Because, like, why would anybody want to fucking do that? Like, people in power just are always vying for more power. And it's just like, what is wrong with us?
Yeah.
And then secondly, the concept of it being insane to put fucking pilots in space is so fucking ridiculous. And then I wrote, is this actually how this went down?
Yeah.
Because they were like, our options are monkeys, circus actors, or I guess pilots. And it was like the worst thing. They were just like, no fucking pilots.
Everyone's like, you don't deal with pilots.
No people who operate machinery already. What if we just took somebody that people wouldn't maybe care about, like a clown?
Yeah.
We can mold a clown.
Yeah.
We can tell a clown what to do and it'll do it.
Yeah.
Insanity.
Yeah.
I like, also, like, again, it's just like, if this is actually real, like, I hate this.
If this was real, we did not deserve to go into space.
Fucking for no reason whatsoever, Jeff Goldblum is a part of that fucking crew. And I hate Jeff Goldblum. I hate it. He showed up. I already knew we were going to have to watch him in The Big Chill, and I wasn't happy about it. To get a Jeff Goldblum jump scare in this movie,
Miserable. Yeah.
Movie title name drop happened about 50 minutes in.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, they say
about getting the right, having the right stuff.
They think they have the right stuff.
That doesn't
or something
shock
like
me.
that.
I didn't notice that. That I would say it took up until after that, like I'll say cabinet meeting or very secret meeting of who they're gonna recruit for the space program. Up until that, I was just angry, and I was like, "This sucks. Why is this so long?" I still have that question, but wow, that was so infuriating. And then I will say, I'm not saying I like this is the best movie ever. It's not. But from that moment forward, I was like, all right, I can get behind this movie. I need the first 40 minutes to be different or just non-existent or like skimmed over because holy shit, like that just like set such an odd tone in my opinion for then how the rest of the movie goes.
Yeah, no, definitely. It literally like completely has like a tone shift and everything after 40 minutes. You're absolutely right. I don't know what the right answer is.
I don't either. I don't know.
Maybe the second half of the movie should have just been cut in half.
Maybe.
Or not the second half. Like where that split happens, like the last 2 hours.
Yeah.
Maybe that should have been cut in half. And so then you have the first 40 minutes into the like, and it's like, here's literally how fast we went from this to this. Yeah. And like, great. Yeah. I could get behind that maybe.
But it was like literally because that, like post that, very beginnings of creating the space program, that was also like just men competing with other men, who's like, countries competing with countries. I mean, people getting worried about being taken advantage of.
Literally the
people
entire
needing
movie.
to show off, and then literally a cut happens, and now they have what? They have 8 guys. I don't remember.
I think it was 8.
8. They literally recruit 8 men who then just become the best of friends. Like it takes a minute. I'm not gonna say it was like that, but like literally, just all of a sudden are like, you cannot. Like if you hit one of us, you've hit all of us.
Yeah, they had it out for each other's backs and stuff, and
and like sure, you could see underlyings of like still competition and like getting worried that someone's getting more fame than another. You still see it, but like they've chosen to like be a family and like commit and like be supportive. And that goes on for so long that I forget the first 40 minutes was just like weird energy and kind of jealous energy.
Yeah.
And this urgency to create something that's never been created. For then the next 2 hours to play out and kind of just be a bunch of guys having a good time together, ultimately, and be really proud of each other. It's just very odd. The shift is odd. It's way too long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was like some there was some standout like good stuff. Like Dennis Quaid was really solid
Dennis
in
Quaid
it
was
as like
very
the
good.
hot shot that like thinks he's the best and all that stuff, and he played the character really well.
I'm
and,
also
like,
obsessed with his wife in the movie.
Yep.
His wife in the movie who like is someone who's not afraid to be like, this is a really fucked up thing you're doing. Like this is so fucked up, and is like there and like very vocal about it.
Ed Harris was great.
Ed Harris was great.
Sam Shepard, who played Chuck Yeager, the like pilot who's constantly trying to be faster and faster and faster,
Yeah.
but like didn't go to be a part of the space program, and
Yep.
like they kept kind of going back to him, and it was kind of like a
That
choice.
was kind of annoying after a while.
Again, I think if the last 2 hours would have only been an hour, and you're still trying to find ways to cut back to him because you're trying to show how he was the hot shot, he was like the creme de la creme.
Mm-hmm.
And like what we wanted, and then so quickly he was nothing.
Yeah,
I understood it.
Yes,
but there was so
drew out
much
the
time
second.
in between going back to him that was just like, why the fuck did we just come back here?
Yeah,
why do we still care about him?
I mean, it was obvious. Like, wow, World War II, like planes were the thing, and so we need to get better planes. Like, we need to get better, like jet,
technology
pilots and technology.
Yeah.
Like we need to be better in that category because that was so like World War II focused. And then as soon as space was in the question, it's literally brought up a million times like, oh, no more funding for any kind of like smaller aircraft like experiments or anything. And like that was his shtick, was this guy they keep going back to. He was like the guy for the first 40 minutes, and then when he passes on the space program,
no, they passed on him.
Oh, well, he did also, whether because he was passed on or what, he was definitely like, that's a big fucking joke, which again, you could argue it was like, they didn't pick me, so I'm offended.
Yeah.
Because that was most of the movie, was just guys being showboaty for 3 hours straight.
There was literally a hum off, come off, I wrote down.
I also did write the 8 astronauts didn't want to be friends until they were challenged by a monkey.
Right. And then they lost out to the monkeys, which is insane. Like I would be radicalized. I would have started breaking shit. Are you kidding me? That's what I mean. Like all of this is so dumb.
It is very dumb. And I'm not going to be shocked if that's pretty much how it played out. But like, did you need to give us the play-by-play?
I will say the things that I did love, the depiction of the press was great because the press is evil, and they did a really good job of showing that.
They did.
And showing Lyndon B. Johnson to look like a fucking loser was just awesome. Was just so fucking awesome. He's just a big fucking baby. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Do you have anything else you wanted to say?
No, that's pretty much it.
Last thing I was going to say is, to me, so it's very interesting. The movie budget was $27 million. Box office, it did 21.1. It was a flop. And I don't think that's surprising. But yet it still got nominated. And my final note was like, this film felt like a propaganda film, and I feel like that's the only reason it actually got nominated. I don't think this movie deserved to be nominated. I don't think it was artsy. I don't think it was like anything special. It was just really, really long and didn't actually accomplish anything with being long. And I know it's tough to go back and compare it because this is a movie from 1983, so you have to kind of sometimes understand certain things. But literally having just watched Oppenheimer, a movie that's 3 hours and it's nothing but talking, was more interesting.
True.
And again, like it's modern and like they can make things better visually, sound, all that stuff. But I just find that to be like,
yeah, I definitely upon like seeing the space program like start finally an hour into the movie, I was like, oh yeah, I see why this was nominated. Like
Yeah.
the minute, I mean, I even like you were like, I'm pretty sure it's about astronauts. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Interesting. I like didn't know anything about it. As soon as the space program started, like you're watching the beginning of the United States space program. I went, yeah, that's why I was nominated.
Yeah.
Like immediately.
Not that it like paints America to be like this like great thing, but like, yeah, it like glorifies this really dumb thing that we were doing.
Yeah. Although it does also, whether intentionally or not, it definitely shows a lot of the insanity that like you
100%.
assume happened truly during the time. So it's not like it totally was like trying to like gloss over that. If anything, it maybe showed some of that in too much detail that I'm like, this is just annoying to watch at this point.
Right.
All right. Movie number 4.
Tender Mercies.
Tender Mercies.
This is a movie about a former country singer who like no longer has it.
Yeah.
He
basically fell apart due to alcoholism.
Yeah, is like run down, and he's staying at like a motel, and he's out of money, so he offers to like work at
in exchange.
Yeah, in exchange for like a place to stay, food, stuff like that, and ends up marrying the person who runs it, and kind of like gets back on his feet, rediscovers his like passion or whatever.
Music,
for music.
Ultimately, yeah.
Just gonna run through real quick.
Go for it.
I hate church singing. There's a lot of church singing in there, and it just like really like brought to attention how much I hate church singing. Oh, real quick, last thing I wanted to say about The Right Stuff, something that I actually think was like a good note that I have here, and I forgot to say it. I'm sorry. I said it's up there with Gravity for movies that make me feel like I can't breathe.
Oh,
it did a lot of those shots really well.
There are a lot of those shots, a lot of very suspenseful.
And you're literally dealing with people who are in space, and
yeah. Even the jet shots in the beginning are pretty scary, like pretty intense. And you're watching people kind of very uncomfortably watch them.
The last jet one made me feel like I couldn't breathe as well.
I wanted to die.
That one was crazy.
There were,
Sorry. Okay.
No,
Tender Mercies. I hate church singing.
Yep.
At one point, the kid of the motel owner is at school. Sonny. And some kids come up to him and are like, didn't your daddy die in that dumb war? And Sonny goes, yeah. And just keep that in mind. And he goes, yeah, what of it? And they say something else. And then he alludes to the fact that it was Vietnam. Mm-hmm. And so that means dumb war equals Vietnam. And then I put equals based. Like that was just, Sonny knows. Journalists still suck. That was very, very funny to like have that show up in this film as well.
Yep.
My biggest gripe, I think, was like, was there any understanding of the passage of time?
No, none.
Like none whatsoever,
in the
right?
first 20 minutes of the movie, at least like 2.5 years pass, and you've no concept.
Is that true?
No, I'm just saying, because he stays there for a while, and then he's like, I got feelings for you. And I'm like, how? We've seen you for 5 minutes.
It's been 3 days.
And then they're married, and then Sonny's like, yeah, that's my stepdad. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, absolutely crazy.
Passage of time is weird.
Robert Duvall, he's the man who plays the country singer.
Mm-hmm.
Does a really good job. Gives a good performance.
I mean, everyone gives a like fine performance.
He's a good singer too.
He is a good singer, actually.
I
don't say actually. I have no concept, but
his like ex-wife is also a country singer, and the whole like concept there is that like she's famous off of songs that he wrote. But anyway, she's like in town. So he, a famous country singer, goes to a country concert and just blends in. Nobody bats an eye. Nobody's like, hey, wait a second. You wrote all these songs.
Yeah.
You used to be married to her.
Yeah.
Like, insanity.
Yeah.
Insanity.
That was a very confusing part.
At one point, he said, because I can't, like 14 times.
Yeah.
Really got that point across. His ex-wife and the song that she was singing.
Yeah.
I guess they only really showed it twice, but like it was that same song both times. And I said that them like cutting back to that gave the same vibes and had the same energy as Never Enough from The Greatest Showman. Where it was just very loud and like
Never Enough's better.
Yeah. Yes. And then something that kind of like annoyed me but more so like annoyed me about today is that like this movie like so clearly depicts how much easier it was to be a grinder because they had those random schmucks who became a band on part-time jobs.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh yeah, we just drove up to your doorstep because we knew you were there.
Those guys were the most endearing part of the whole movie.
100%.
Like, I actually wish there would have been more about them.
100%.
Because I found them more
great.
Interesting.
But they also pissed me off because I'm just what the fuck is this shit?
They
Anybody
literally
can just do anything.
show up and they're like, we're really big fans. And he's like, cool. And they're like...
And he's like, cool. Sing my song.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay.
Yeah.
Come record an album with us.
And he's like, okay. And then he's a musician again because a bunch of like basically college kids are like, join our band. Yeah. No, you've summed it up pretty much. So.
And then I also said there's just a brutal amount of like divorce in the movie and like kids talking about it.
Yeah.
And kids just like being very blunt about like divorce or not liking their stepfather or stuff like that. And I was just like, what the fuck?
Yes, there's that. But okay, the thing that really bothered me about it is it feels like it's trying to really hit home with like, man, some really shitty things can happen in your life, like whether you're in control of it or not. But it all is so brush over because there's such a weird concept of time.
Yeah.
Nothing is actually like dealt with.
Right.
Not a single thing is dealt with. Literally the ex-country singer who then becomes a country singer again, he literally admits to like being a huge and like horrible alcoholic. That's what caused his divorce. And then he's like, fine. He's like, I'm over it. And then almost literally relapses. But you were just like, and then they're like, and then that happened.
Yeah.
He goes, but I didn't. What? That's not dealing with it.
And they were like, let's sing a song.
They just move on. Yeah, they just move on. That was everything. Like they were like, oh, literally alcoholism. Brush over it, move on. Divorce. Brush over it, move on. People dying in your life. Brush over it, move on. Like that was the theme of the movie, was just bring it up so we feel like we brought it up to attention and then move on.
Yeah.
And so I literally wrote, ultimately, this is a movie where a man mildly approves his ability to process emotion while his wife stares at him in quiet contemplation. Because also, the poor wife doesn't express a single emotion the entire movie.
Nope.
Not a single emotion. And like it is clearly being talked to. Like her son is clearly like trying to understand that like, sure, he's like, I didn't really know my dad. He died when I was really young. But like, he obviously still understands that like he had a dad who's no longer here and is in this war, was in a war that was very controversial. And he's like fine with admitting it might not have been worth it. But like, that means the mother/wife is also dealing with all of that. And she's now married this man who like used to be an alcoholic, is dealing with his own shit, just runs out of the house whenever he gets upset. And like all she does is like, can I make you a bowl of soup? What?
Oh yeah, there were a couple of times.
What?
Where are you hungry? And he goes, suppose I could eat or something like that.
Suppose I could eat something.
And then like
and then she's like, all I got is soup, and he's like, that'll do.
Yeah, and the other time was like when he was out and about, and she was like, did you eat? And he was like, no. And she was like, do you want me to cook you up something?
Yeah.
And he was like, I
suppose
suppose
I could.
Yeah, it's just like,
yeah.
I hate it.
So that was really annoying that the wife's entire personality is, and she like says this like multiple times. She basically says it is what it is to everything that happens.
Yeah.
Which like is probably more on the writing. It's like it's not on like her. Like I thought she did like fine for like the role she was given. Like that's an insane role to be given. Just like you're the wife who clearly is dealing with a lot, but we're not gonna like you don't even get to like laugh, cry, smile, nothing for the whole movie. And just watch these men like kind of deal with it, but not actually cope with anything in a like good manner. Which 80s, so what do you expect? But yeah, just like I just don't like how briefly everything was touched upon. Like it was a fine movie. The vibes were okay, but honestly, the vibes should have not been okay because it really is just like glossing over horrible things that are like really happen in life. And that was my take on that. And then the last movie, which we literally just finished watching.
The Big Chill.
The Big Chill.
I have 2 notes.
I wrote nothing.
I only wrote notes at the end. I wrote, it's a super easy watch. It's nothing special.
Nope.
But there's no complaints either in my mind. It's funny.
It is.
It's super lighthearted.
It's feel good for sure.
But it's all surrounding a super dark subject.
Yes.
And the way that it's all handled is, I think, like really well done.
Yes.
And like in showing how like a group of friends will all
cope
no matter what, like no matter how close they were or are now, will like all still like come together over something that they are related and close to, and also all are going to have their own ways of dealing and coping with that said thing. And a lot of them dealt with it with like humor to some degree, but also like there was anger and there was stuff like that because it was about a suicide and things like that. And I think I just think it was like really well done. And I think of the 5 movies, this is probably the one that I feel is the most rewatchable.
Yes.
I think this is the easiest one to just like, I'll just watch The Big Chill. I'll just throw on The Big Chill.
You could, yeah.
Like
for
I think this is the one that like I think
honestly it might not be for me the only like rewatchable.
Yeah, because I
would agree that Terms of Endearment is if the last 10 minutes weren't so emotionally devastating.
Terms of Endearment's so good, but I think like it's one of those movies where like once you've had your first watch, everything's going to be a diminishing return.
Yeah.
This doesn't have that.
No.
There's nothing that like
it's all vibes.
This has twists to it.
But it's all vibes.
That like maybe you like pick up on certain things
but
like quicker. But yeah, I think like I don't know. I thought it was good. You know, I don't think it was like the best movie ever or anything like that. I think it was kind of an interesting nominee.
It was an interesting
but
nominee. And the overall concept I actually really liked. Like I like that you never meet the friend who committed suicide. I like that it's just kind of like people brushing against stories about this person. Whilst also like, I mean, they're all in their like 30s and they're like in their 40s, honestly. And they're reflecting on this was a college friend. Mm-hmm. And they're kind of like, oh God, we really got out of touch with them.
And you're picking up on like why certain like threads like started to fray amongst the group and like amongst certain people within the group. And like you like get an understanding of like why it took this.
And you're really just plopped in the moment and they're not over explaining to you why things happened the way they did.
One other thing. The soundtrack for the movie.
Good.
Chef's Kiss.
Yeah.
So good.
It was fun. I like the way it was implemented too.
Oh my God. Started off on You Can't Always Get What You Want being played on an organ
at the funeral was a banger and everyone like cracking up. Like that it was honestly like as much as it's all based around a really tragic event, I was sitting there like, oh my God, I miss our friends. Because it's like, it's that thing. It's like literally the organ starts playing, you can't always, like a friend goes to the organ, starts playing, you can't always get what you want. Every college friend gets that smirk on their face of like, you know, that's an inside joke. Like, and they don't explain it to you. Like, and they don't need to. Like, that's the beauty of it. Is like, if you've literally ever had like a close friend, a close small group of friends, like you just know, like you just see it. And it like you said, it doesn't matter. Like you can tell some of these people have had years of separation with each other and it doesn't matter. Like there's a little awkwardness in the beginning and at parts and like confronting like we're all different people now, but at the same time they can just so easily go back and like be those people again with each other. So like that was super endearing. And even though we're sitting here we're like it's versus versus Tender Mercies where I felt like all the shit was just brushed over and moved on. This is like, sure, you're not watching people have like a full-on breakdown, but like also like probably isn't what would happen, but like they are dealing with it. Right. Like you can tell they're dealing with it. It feels a lot more of a human reaction to these things versus what I feel like Tender Mercies did. Like Tender Mercies really felt like it was like, and the next thing. Whereas this was like, sure, we're not gonna like sit here and explain how we're coping, but like you can see it. It was displayed in a much more appropriate manner, in my opinion. Whether you agree with how people cope with it or not, obviously, whatever.
Right.
But yeah, it actually felt like a proper, like you can truly see them all dealing with it whilst trying to not be like absolutely miserable for 72 hours because they haven't been together for how long? Like, and it's kind of that weird, interesting mixture of that situation to be
And
in.
gotta be honest, probably the best part about the movie is that Jeff Goldblum didn't hate him.
I love that almost not really a spoiler, but almost everyone there hates him.
Wow, yeah.
Like he's definitely he's like the butt of almost every joke. Like he's clearly the like out friend who like he's there, but like not really many people want to spend a one-on-one time with him. Kind of people just being like, shut up, go away.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was kind of funny.
Yeah, no, but I overall did not hate him.
Yeah, he was pretty solid.
You did a good job.
My single note that I made as my review. Didn't realize close college friends means literally everyone is sleeping with everyone.
Well, that's not really how it went down.
That's pretty much how it went down.
It's not.
That's pretty much how it went down.
Watch the movie, and that's not how it went down. Oh, man. Let's see. Anything else? I mean, do we want to go ranking, or should I go through some of the other stuff from the awards?
If you want to go through some of the other stuff quick before we go through the ranking.
So, as we know, Terms of Endearment ended up winning Best Picture. I guess just to start out, Terms of Endearment, Best Picture. Do you agree? Do you not? I agree.
Without a shadow of a doubt. We'll get into it with rankings, but yeah, 100% of all the 5 movies, that was the winner.
I agree. Okay, so for Best Actor, the nominees were Robert Duvall as Max Sledge in Tender Mercies, Michael Caine as Professor Frank Bryan in Educating Rita, a movie we didn't watch, Tom Conti in Reuben as Gowan McGland, another one we didn't watch. But then
These names are crazy.
Tom Courtenay in The Dresser as Norman, and Albert Finney in The Dresser as Sir. And Robert Duvall is the one who ended up winning Best Actor. And so just off of what we watched and not having a glimpse at what Michael Caine's role was and Tom Conti, I would absolutely say Tom Courtenay was a better Best Actor.
I agree.
In the movies that we watched.
Which again, this I do think a lot of my complaints about Tender Mercies does come down to how it's written, unfortunately. So I don't want to sit here and be like Robert Duvall doesn't deserve it, but like I was way more impressed with both the men in The Dresser, but especially Norman, like the dresser himself. I was way more impressed with them than Tender Mercies. But again, I think my issue is more with the writing than the acting.
Yeah. For Best Actress, so for the only ones that we watched, Shirley MacLaine for Terms of Endearment as Aurora Greenway, Deborah Winger for Terms of Endearment as Emma Greenway Horton. Shirley MacLaine was the one who brought home the award, and I actually find that interesting because I would honestly say that I think Deborah Winger, but both gave phenomenal performances. I have no issue with it, but
yeah, you would almost in that situation just because I mean they were both in so good, like they were both amazing,
they were so fantastic.
But like to not give like just because it's based the movie is around Emma, so like to not. Oh my God, I mean they both were amazing. I can't be mad, tough. But.
And then I think Best Supporting Actor is the only other one where... hang on. Yeah. Best Supporting Actor. So Best Supporting Actor, Jack Nicholson won for Terms of Endearment as Garrett Breedlove, the like astronaut, washed up astronaut. John Lithgow was also nominated as Sam Burns. He was the... he probably was the only other person in the movie that you recognize. He was the one that Emma is having like an affair with.
Oh, he was nominated?
He was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. Again, might have been a popularity thing. He was like a huge sitcom actor.
I'll say he feels kind of like he felt like a whatever person.
But Sam Shepard from The Right Stuff, Chuck Yeager, the pilot, who's like constantly trying to go faster. Yeah, he was also nominated.
Honestly, that's a solid nomination.
That's a solid nomination as well. I don't hate Jack Nicholson for it. Again, I like saw that and I was just like, there was no other Best Supporting Actor other than his performance. Like,
yeah, I don't know. I was kind of whatever about.
I mean, honestly, like, so Glenn Close was nominated for The Big Chill. She's the only actress nominated for Best Supporting Actress that we like watched. She didn't win. But honestly, like, I'm surprised none of the men from The Big Chill were nominated because, like, honestly, any one of them could have potentially like been a solid nominee for me. Yeah. Potentially, but I don't. Sometimes it's like what goes into being a supporting actor or actress.
Right. I don't. Yeah.
So. That's like the main other ones that like awards that like people clean up and stuff like that. So I just thought that was interesting and something that I think we'll try and do for each, because we saw
those,
5 specific performances and I think we can like kind of weigh in a little bit on it.
Yeah.
The ranking.
The ranking.
I think we both have Terms of Endearment at number 1.
Like, yeah, number 1, and then there's like 5 feet of dirt.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
before
like
number 2.
Terms of Endearment is like very clearly the winner.
It's way above all
of
the other
us.
movies.
Oh man, it's so tough for me for number 2. What's your number 2? I might roll with you depending.
Don't roll with me. Oh my god, I really go back and forth because all the others are like pretty average to me. I think my next favorite I think it has to be the right stuff. Which is so funny because I spent so long shitting on it.
What's your 3?
I think that has to be The Big Chill.
Okay, cool. So my number 2, I guess my number 2, it's so tight for me between 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Like it's a huge drop off from Terms of Endearment.
Yeah.
Then it's really tight. So like if Terms of Endearment's at 100, I would say these two are at like 90 and 89.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I'm going to go Big Chill and then The Dresser.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go Big Chill just simply because I'm like, I could rewatch The Big Chill. And I think it's like, it's the best movie of these 5 in the sense that like anybody could watch this movie. Anybody could watch this movie. And I think just about any average person would like it.
Yeah, I agree.
Whereas like the other ones are like tough in some ways.
Yeah. I will say The Big Chill and The Right Stuff could totally be interchanged for me. I'm not joking. I just me getting on my soapbox for a minute. These movies all made me really mad about women. So you're
gonna love the next year that we watch.
I know. So in The Right Stuff, literally, the Man in Black.
Ed
Harris having a moment of supporting his wife genuinely
total wife guy.
Genuinely sold the movie for me. Like genuinely.
Okay, so I had Terms of Endearment, Big Chill,
Yeah.
The Dresser. You had Terms of Endearment, The Right Stuff,
The Big
Big
Chill.
Chill. For me, number 4 is The Right Stuff.
And for me, number 4, it would have to be Tender Mercies.
Insane. Tender Mercies is by far the worst one. Honestly, I would say not by far. The Right Stuff and Tender Mercies are very close for me for the bottom.
That's
like,
fair.
If Big Chill's a 90 and The Dresser's an 89 and they're so close, like it's pretty obvious though that those two are separate from The Right Stuff and Tender Mercies, which are like an 80 and a 79 for me. Mm-hmm. Like they're close in their own regards. Which means The Dresser is last for you.
The Dresser's at my bottom. I just can't. It's not for me.
Fair play. 100%.
I can see it. I see it, but I can't. It doesn't work in my head.
That's the other thing too. Like I think I get it for all 5 of these. It's just a little shocking to me that like
very interesting.
These
mix of
were
movies.
the best, for the year. But
truly for me, outside. I mean, I'm not shocked about The Right Stuff because again,
I'm shocked Robert Duvall won Best Actor for Tender Mercies.
I'm very shocked Robert Duvall won Best
crazy.
Actor. That is shocking to me. Yeah, literally, again, I cannot stress enough. Terms of Endearment is leaps and bounds above the others for me, like way above. I would recommend The Big Chill to people if they were really for some reason looking for something. But Terms of Endearment, I feel like will be really the only movie I come out of this being like, yeah.
I think so. I think based on like what we said here, if you're gonna watch a movie from the year, very obvious that if you're going to choose one, you should watch Terms of Endearment.
Yeah.
If you're going to choose a second one based on like averages and stuff, it would be The Big Chill.
Yes.
And I think that's
honestly,
those are very
stop
fair.
there.
And those are like, those are probably the ones that hold up the best too, honestly.
Yes. I do think even though The Dresser is literally the lowest on my list, I do think like there would be a type of person. I mean, there's obviously a type of person. Like it wouldn't be your average TV watcher.
Who would like that?
Who?
My grandparents. My grandparents would love The Dresser.
Yes.
Without a doubt. They would need to watch it with subtitles because of the thick accents. But they would, my grandmother would be like, yes. She'd be like hands clasped. She would love it.
Yeah. If you know people who are like into the arts, and I don't like, you know what I mean? Like into the arts, like love it. That is the person for that, which I normally consider myself that person, but
I'm kind of shocked.
I'm also shocked. I don't know. I'm kind of dumb when it comes to like plays.
I'm glad you said it.
I'm unfortunately a musical girl, and I really do think the line was drawn here. Unfortunately, I don't like to say
I
it.
draw a line in the sand. Yeah.
I drew a little line in the sand. Plays have always been a bit above me, so maybe that's just where it's at. I'm not a play girl. So I'm a playboy.
No.
All right. That was a bit long, but I'm pretty satisfied with how we covered all the movies.
Yeah, it's
How
gonna
are
be
you
tough.
feeling?
It's gonna be tough with certain years
When there's 10.
9 or 10. I think what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to like agree.
To like hit a certain ones.
Well, like I think it's gonna have to be like, okay, what was your number one?
Yeah.
What was my number one?
And then maybe like what was
your number
favorite?
2? What was my number 2?
Yeah.
And hopefully we agree on some of those. Like hopefully each of our top 3s have some overlap, so we can cover 5 movies.
Yeah.
And we can try and give like a little bit to the rest and like call out specifically. We'll still rank them.
Well, thankfully, we don't need to worry about that for a bit because what's our next movie year, Spencer?
Our next year is we're going back in time even further.
Woo!
And we are watching movies from 1979.
I'm sure there won't be any strange female connotations at all.
We will be watching Kramer versus Kramer, which was the winner of Best Picture.
Yeah.
The other nominees are All That Jazz, Apocalypse Now, Breaking Away, and Norma Ray.
Norma Ray.
Yes. And I'm realizing, very interesting, Peter Yates, who did Breaking Away, was also the one who did
The Dresser.
The Dresser.
Yeah, I made a note about that on my phone.
Nice. And Apocalypse Now is Francis Coppola. Coppola, which is Nicolas Cage's great uncle.
Oh, that's right.
Or something. They're related.
Yeah. Crazy.
I'm excited. Kramer versus Kramer. That's Dustin Hoffman. Very excited.
Who?
Big Dustin Hoffman guy.
So sick. 1979. That is our next year, which we will be covering in April. The last Monday of April. I will put a post together. Well, I don't need to put it together for a while because
current me doesn't.
But me now. The post better be out, Shelby. This is a note for future Shelby.
This fucking guy.
Oh my God.
Wrap it.
Okay. Thank you all for listening and being here. Again, this was our movie club where we do every other month. The end of next month, aka March, will be a deep dive into what? Who knows? We still have a lot of time to figure that out. So, follow us, SMC Podcast on TikTok, Instagram, and that is where our YouTube's at as well if you prefer YouTube as a listening platform. Feel free to rate, love, give all the hearts or whatever, let us know we're great at this. And if you want to follow us both, our socials are always in the description.
And if there's anything else that you wish we would have done as a part of the movie club, let us know and we'll try and incorporate it for the 1979 coverage.
Hell yeah.
Shelby, it's been a pleasure.
It has been a pleasure. Let's go watch together The Right Stuff. Ian McKellen. Wait, which one?
The Dresser?
Shit, The Dresser. God.